What's happening is nothing less than reorganization of the entire global monetary system. And when I say that, I mean, and the central banks are all going to be destroyed. Or if we do that, the United States will not only survive this period of time, it will thrive in a way that nobody ever thought. Gold and Bitcoin and reality is that they're going to form the collateral for this new system. And everybody's going to need to have some in order to be able to. The IMF's not taking over the global monetary system. The SDR's not coming. The BRICS are never going to issue their own freaking currency. None of that is coming. What's coming is
we have so many incredible things going on, and we are just talking about the administration saying one thing here in the U.S. Is saying we want a strong dollar, and then in the back behind the scenes, it seems like they are doing opposite of that. They need to refi these rates or refi the debt over some time here with cheaper rates, and we go Fed heads, fighting with Fed heads. We have all kinds of just mass chaos going on. I would love for you to just unpack what in the world is happening right now, and what are we being set up for? It feels like the U.S. is trying to front run the SDR, the BRICS nations, like all these things that are happening. We're in this monetary transition. So I would love for you to give your thoughts on what's actually happening here.
Sure. Thank you for the invite, Brandon. Thank you for the return, and I hope you've been well. Absolutely. And all of that. Let's get all that stuff out of the way for all the pleasantries out of the way. What's happening is nothing less than a reorganization of the entire global monetary system. And when I say that, I mean, the dollar's not going anywhere. So it's going to be a new system. It's going to be a new system. The dollar's still going to be at the core of it, but it's going to be a new system. And it doesn't have to get much more complicated than that. Most of what you just outlined, or you just talked about, SDRs and BRICS and all this, this is all like a 2010 Jim Rickards style narrative where Davos was in control of everything. We were at the zero bound and we were never going to get out of it. The United States was never going to assert its sovereignty. And that's the path that we were on. We were on that timeline. We were on that timeline for a very long time. Then Donald Trump got elected in 2016. Jerome Powell instituted SOFR, began the rollout of SOFR in 2017. That's now been running. And the United States has proven that when it wants to defend the dollar, it knows exactly how to do so. When it wants to defend the value of the dollar, or trash the dollar, or pull back on dollar liquidity, or give dollar liquidity, only it has that ability. Everybody else had that ability before. And under LIBOR, they had that ability. The City of London was running the Eurodollar system, what ran the dollar system. Jeff Snyder, did yeoman's work for a long, long time trying to explain this to everybody. And I don't know that I haven't checked in with Jeff in quite a long time, but he was refusing to accept the fact that SOFR was the big change. The last I heard, and that was, I haven't checked in with Jeff in 3 years, so I don't know. I just know that today, Eurodollar futures inversions don't mean anything anymore. They had in the past, they don't anymore. So now what the U.S. is doing, and again, the U.S. dollar index is not a proxy for the strength or the weakness of the dollar. It's not. It's not at all, as a matter of fact. It's actually an index that's, when you have an index where China isn't involved in the index, how much value does the index actually have, right? The lion's share of the U.S. dollar index is dominated by the euro, the yen, the pound, the Swiss franc, and the Canadian dollar. Not a yuan to be seen, right? So what's important, and you've got to understand, we control the par value of the dollar now. SOFR decides that rate, and the U.S. repo markets and the demand for money domestically decides what the cost of dollars is going to be around the world. So what the Trump administration is saying is that we're going to defend the dollar, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to use the dollar's exchange rate to our advantage in order to secure trade deals that we want. So Trump and Bessent went out there and they trashed the dollar over the course of the last 6 months. But they weren't the only ones acting. To say that they were doing all of this is to say that the ECB has no agency, or that European investors have no agency, or Chinese investors have no agency. They do. Great talk that I had a few months ago with Brent Johnson of San Diego Capital, the dollar milkshake guy. As a matter of fact, I just got done recording an hour with Brent, which is why he's probably in my head. he reminded me, he posted a chart a couple of months ago, like before the last time he was on my podcast, where he said, dollar going up is de-dollarization. Dollar going down is re-dollarization. And what he means by that, simply put, is that when the dollar's falling in value relative to the other currencies, dollars are being sent out around the world. When dollars get expensive, people look for alternatives to it. So there's a number of ways that the dollar can move up or down, or reasons why the dollar can move up or down relative to other currencies. And into the mix of the Lord of Chaos himself, Donald Trump, coming in and saying, look, you know what? That's it. No more durable trade deficits with the United States. No more trade surpluses. We're normalizing trade. And we're going to do that with tariffs. And we're going to do that by forcing trade deals and enforcing it. And when we're done with the trade deal and the tariff threat, we're going to make sure that you invest your money that you've stolen from us. You're going to invest it back in the United States. That's the way Trump looks at this. Okay. And the tariffs themselves are just one aspect of the entirety of the unfairness of the quote unquote rules-based order that is an institutional framework to ensure that dollars went out and cheap consumer goods came back and our economy and our country was destroyed. And that's what's happened. Now, heaven help anybody who crosses Donald Trump and with America.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't consensus politics anymore. This isn't, we should all try to get along. And no. You stole from us and we want it back. This is how we're going to get it back. You're going to pay for our debt, for servicing the debt. No longer are you going to get paid for us to issue debt and then you get to, pull 4.5% or 5% off of our labor. No, that's not happening anymore. We're going to claw back so much more than you ever got paid in interest that it's going to be net deficit for you in the short run. In the long run, the tariffs will come, everything will attenuate over time and trade will be balanced. You've got to think now like a mob boss. And if you're not willing to think like a mob boss, if you're not willing to think like, a guy with a lot of power who can utilize that power, and you want to see somebody else win, well, then you're going to whine about what's happening.
Everything you are learning in this episode is completely moot and does not matter if you hold Bitcoin and are still leaving it on an exchange or sharing keys and your KYC information with a third party. This is your wake-up call now. You are only self-sovereign if you alone hold the keys to your wealth. 100% self-custody sounds daunting at first. Believe me, I lost 2 years of massive gains over a decade ago because I was worried about taking the few minutes it took to understand self-custody. And that's exactly why you need to talk to my friends, Tony Yazbek and his team at the Bitcoin Way. We just interviewed Tony recently, has over 80,000 views, an overwhelming response. People love his story and the simplicity he shares of how easy it is to custody and take ownership of the greatest money we've ever seen. They'll train you to do it right the first time. Head on over to thebitcoinway.com/Brandon to schedule a free 30-minute consultation today. Their 5-star rated service is exactly what you need. Quit sitting on your hands like I did and get started today. Again, that's thebitcoinway.com/BRANDON. Now that you have the professional team in place, you need the professional tools to store your generational wealth forever on a titanium C plate. Your 12 to 24 words are your generational wealth. That is the key for your Bitcoin, no matter where you are in the universe. Go to Stampseed, code Brandon at checkout for 15% off store-wide. This withstands fire, flood, nuclear fallout. We shot hockey pucks this thing. Don't become a statistic and put your generational wealth in paper. Go to Stampseed now, code Brandon at checkout for 15% store-wide to secure your generational wealth forever.
And we're seeing it from all corners. We're seeing it from the usual suspects over at Davos in the city of London who are screaming bloody murder, that Trump is like fixing all of these open wounds and Gordian knots geopolitically they have around the world. He's rebalancing trade. He's defending the United States. And they're all like, you can't do that. That's unfair. You're the big bully. And then like, yeah. And that's nice. Like, I'm just channeling Donald Trump at this point. Yeah. And you stole from us. You literally stole elections, bought or used our tax money to buy our politicians to prosecute your monetary policy and your fiscal policy and your foreign policy to prop up your failing anti-democratic systems over in Europe Your colonial adventurism that you were continuing to do, France in Sahel region of Africa, or Britain in the Middle East, or this one or that one, or all of it. Like, and on top of everything else, you were children, and you were running drugs, and you were invading, and you were paying people to invade our border and come in and then use the quislings that you had hired in our government to then pay for these people to the tunes of billions of dollars a year, more than what we were paying the people who built this country. Well, not the boomers, but you know what I mean, who are currently on Social Security. Like, that was going on. That's over. No more, none of this globalist nonsense. The IMF's not taking over the global monetary system. The SDR's not coming. The BRICS are never going to issue their own freaking currency. None of that is coming. What's coming is tokenization of assets backed by local treasuries, treasury stable coins of some form or another. Either, the United States is going to have their own, and Russia's going to have theirs. China's going to have theirs. Everybody's going to have theirs. And most of the trade is going to be denominated. It's going to be, the receipts are all going to be paid in dollars, and we're going to wrap treasuries and stable coins, and we're going to use that, and we're going to transmit all that along public blockchains. And the central banks are all going to be destroyed, or they're going to have to, get with the program. And that includes our Fed, by the way. So that's what's happening. Like, all of that old shit is like, it's so, that's so 2015. And it's still out there in the zeitgeist, muddying up the conversation space. Like, somehow, and worse than that it's actually wrong for the United States to defend itself after having been hollowed out by the last 80 years of everybody, literally, pulling a piece off the corpse. Like, we're not dead. You just thought we were dead because we were playing dead. I don't know, because you anesthetize us. If I have to extend the metaphor, then I got news for you. Then our livers kicked in, and and the anesthesia wore off, and we're like, "What the fuck did this? How did this happen?" Yeah, no. How about no? We're not going to war with Russia. We're not doing this. We're not going to war for Israel and Iran. We're not doing any of this stuff. And y'all work for us again. But this time, you're going to work for a United States that's not interested in being the global hegemon. Because that's a British game. That's a Dutch game. That's a Belgian Luxembourg game, for lack of a better term. I'm adding Luxembourg into my lexicon just to make sure everybody knows that shit in place is one of the true nests of vipers. I give City of London all the opprobrium, but it's not like it's not like those. Like, seriously, that's where we are. I'm so angry about this stuff. I'm like trying to keep I'm trying to not hit the YouTube censor. So you should probably get rid of that word. But I'm serious here. This is so simple. Everybody focuses. I don't understand why everybody thinks that because the United States has $37 trillion in debt, we have to, it's all over now. Debt to GDP ratio is a bullshit statistic that is not attenuated for the asset side of the balance sheet. If you have assets, I'm more worried about a debt to GDP ratio in Japan, not that I'm worried about Japan, than I am about the United States. Why? Because the United States has hundreds of trillions of dollars worth of assets. And anybody who says that we have fewer than that is crazy. We've written them all down to zero. That's the current value of them. But, Alaska? You think Alaska is only worth some amount of money. Bullshit. Alaska is probably worth 10 times the amount of money that it is on our books. Rocky Mountains, same thing. Offshore California oil, same thing. The United States is still the envy of the world, even though the United States is kind of shitty right now. That's how bad everything else is. But they all still want access to our markets. They all still want access to the patent portfolios. They want access to the corporate law. They want access to the to our commercial code. They want all of that. They want access to the legal protections and the privacy rules and everything else. Because as bad as you think we are, everybody else is worse. But if you keep focusing everybody's attention on America bad, America going to fall, has anybody looked at what's going on in Europe? I mean, seriously. Basket case. Yeah. Over the last 15 years, their GDP has halved relative to the United States. It's been flat. Not to say that GDP is a great statistic, but let's use something here.
Right.
And in terms of purchasing power parity, let's not even go there. So then we come to find out that Germany's not all that powerful. And if Germany's the economic powerhouse of the EU, and they have a purchasing power parity GDP on a per capita basis that's lower than Russia's, what does that say about the European Union? Why do you think Trump is meeting Putin in Alaska? Because he wants trade partners that don't suck. Like, that's where I am. And I'm dead serious, Brandon, when I'm in high dudgeon this afternoon, but I watch this stuff and it's, and I'm like, y'all are out of your minds if you don't think that we can't not just defend ourselves, but beat these people and then destroy them and move on. Europe is not a vassal state of the United States. Anybody promulgating that narrative is either a European undergoing massive amounts of cope and is literally huffing the copium every freaking day, or is a globalist stooge. Either way. That's it. Europe has been the giant vacuum cleaner sucking America dry for 2.5 centuries. These people never got over the fact that Cornwallis surrendered at Yorktown. Ever. And Trump just summoned them all to his castle in Scotland and said, oh, by the way, you work for me now. Von der Leyen rolls right over. Keir Starmer gets off of Trump's helicopter at his castle in Scotland in his own country. Doesn't even show up in his entourage. He shows up with Trump's security. Yeah, okay. You may want to look at that as, oh, well, we're a conquered nation. Yeah, you are, because you attempted to conquer us, you fucks. And now you're attempting to keep Canada off from us, and we're going to take Canada back too. Because the whole goal of this is to actually liberate the world from these fucking people. Did you see the latest thing this afternoon? The guy's literally telling Congress that the entire Biden junta was nothing but a big trafficking organization. Like, we're at a point now where everything's changing. Trump just nationalized the security in D.C. because he's leaving for Alaska in a couple of days, and the last thing he wants is for Alexander Soros to try and start a Maidan in D.C., which is what they tried last night.
We mentioned something a second ago, just the Davos crowd, globalism. You just painted this amazing picture. What's next for them? Like, what's this fight between globalism and nationalism, or globalism, populism, or whatever we want to call it? What is next? Like, what comes next for them as they've been trying to build this up for decades? The Club of Rome, on and on and on, and then it's just they can see it just kind of falling away from their grasp. Like, what's next for them?
What's next for them is that they have to keep Ukraine going. They have to try and turn Trump into a villain against his own people. That's their plan. That's everything they're doing right now. Everything they do, every tweet from an AI bot or from some Canadian getting paid $15 an hour on Twitter, everything they're doing, everything, every stupid meme, every bad take from the mainstream press, every literal garbage talking point or article that you see on Bloomberg or the Wall Street Journal or the Financial Times, unsourced rumors about this X, Y, and Z. All of it is nonsense. All of this, Trump loves the Jews more than he loves America. No, Trump likes Israel and probably has some favors to work off. But Trump likes Israel. There's a difference. He doesn't like Bibi Netanyahu. He doesn't like City of London. Because those are the people that fucked him. Those are the people that undermined his first term in office. Those are the people who tried to put him in jail. Those are the people who tried to kill him. Those are the people who debanked his wife and his son. Okay? Mm-hmm. And he has all the goods on them. And the proof of that is Pam Bondi impaneling a grand jury for indictment in the Southern District of Florida for Obamagate. Put it all together. If this was just Trump like playing footsie with the deep state, like all these fucking second grade libertarians running around on Twitter think it is, chuckling and collapsitarian, these morons. they would be right if James Comey's daughter was going to be the prosecutor and it was impaneled in DC. But it's not. There's a reason why he first floated a Floridian, Matt Gaetz, as AG to find out just how staunch the opposition would be to him being AG. And then when they shot that down, because, they shot it down, they blew their wad, a bunch of people outed themselves. He then gave him Pam Bondi, and there's nothing they could do with Pam Bondi other than say yes. And there's an argument to be made that they think they owned Pam Bondi. Because she's got, some shady stuff she's got some stuff in her past that's not, that can be used, that can create guilt by association narratives, which they've thrown out there.
It's incredible.
But
absolutely wild.
Bondi turns around after all of this time, and Gabbard throws this stuff out into the world as DNI. And within a week, we're getting indictments in the Southern District of Florida. Why? Because these people went to Donald Trump's house in Mar-a-Lago, raided his home, looking for the evidence that he took with him about Obamagate. They knew he had it. They thought he was dumb enough to keep it at home. It's the only reason why you can make the argument that they could impanel this grand jury in Florida. If they were going after the Russiagate or Obamagate documents, if that's the point, if that was the point of the FBI raid, if that can be made in any way, then they can move jurisdiction to Florida. Once you move the thing to Florida, it's outside of the purview of DC, where you would never be able to get a fair trial or a fair grand jury assessment or anything else. The process can go in Florida. Why? Because Trump controls the courts in Florida. So what's the counter narrative? Trump's a dictator and he's like persecuting his political opponents. And can't we just let bygones be bygones? No, we can't just let bygones be bygones. You put us in cages for 2 years, you people. You tried to destroy the man. Or just, let's be bygones, be bygones. Yeah, how about no? And how about when we're done, you'll be lucky you can find your ass with a map in both hands? No, this is going off in Florida. This is telling you that that's what they went after. Meaning they knew they were guilty. They knew he had the goods. And then he goes out and then he has like Kash Patel and, Ratcliffe and others go out there and say, oh yeah, we found it in a burn bag in the back, in the bathroom and, on the third floor of the CIA. I'm like, yeah, I believe that. Like I believe anything that ever came out of, James Carville's mouth. Okay. What is today? A day that ends in a Y? Like, it's like, did an Irishman drink today? Yeah, it's a day that ended in a Y. Did James Carville lie? Yeah, it's a day that ends in a Y. Were they trying to find the Obamagate stuff in Mar-a-Lago? Yeah, it's a day that ends in the Y. Evil. And that's what's going on here. They're all trying to cover their friggin' tracks. And notice how no one's saying anything. Notice how Obama made one statement. James Comey said one, or Clapper said one thing. Brennan said one thing. Hillary said one thing. And they're all lawyering. And they're all shut up for the last 2 weeks. Because Gabbard was smart and and started dripping the shit out for them to perjure themselves even further to ensure that they're all cooked. This was after she went and met with von der Leyen and met with the British and told them how badly they're fucked. Which is why Trump was able to summon them to Scotland and do his bidding. No. None of this is all over. The war is already fought. It's mostly over, but what do you think they're going to do next? False flag in Ukraine, of course. They got to get Trump to go to war with Putin.
This meeting, what do you think it comes out of this meeting with Trump and Putin? I mean, what is that discussed? Is that kind of, like what? I guess the other question too is
for public consumption. I don't think very much. Nothing they're going to discuss is going to be for public consumption.
Yeah.
The meeting itself is the historic event.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that Putin is willing to come to Alaska, not to any country that has signed it, signed a treaty with the International Criminal Court, which neither Russia nor the United States are signatories to anymore. So the arrest warrant against Putin is null and void against that. Now, somebody pointed out to me the other day, it was like, it'd be really interesting to see what airspaces they each fly in. Like for Putin, it's easy. He flies over Russian airspace, avoiding Europe, right? Directly to, like Russia, the United, Alaska, and Kamchatka are, separated by 25 freaking miles or whatever. It's nothing. I mean, it's still a long flight from Putin from Moscow, but that's not important. For Trump, on the other hand, does Trump fly over Canada? I wouldn't. If I were Trump, I'd fly out and up the coast. I would avoid Canada like the plague. Not that I expect Canada to shoot down Air Force One.
Right.
But I would let Mark Carney know, I don't trust you. I'm flying around your whole country until I take it over. And that's not meant as in any way as an offense to Canadians. I know that probably sounds bad, but I love Canada. I want you free. Mm-hmm. But as long as Mark Carney is prime minister and the Davosians are in control and they're importing 40,000 Indian a month, I got news for you. You're not a real country anymore. You're conquered. You're being replaced. It's, worked in fits and starts. It's over. All those people need to go home. Or they're going to get put in a hole. And it's not going to be it's just going to be by Americans finally just saying, you know what? That's enough. And there's going to be violence. Mm-hmm. And then all the purple hairs in Gainesville locking themselves in fucking cages, protesting alligator Alcatraz. Well, like, oh, see, Trump's a dictator. Shut up. Smack. Let's just smack these old boomers in the mouth. Like, seriously, what the hell's wrong with you? The world, this is not the age of Aquarius, folks. Like, it's over. It's the return to power politics. It has to happen in order for the world to right itself. You just don't want to take it too far. But the people you don't listen to about whether Trump is going too far or not are the people who hate everything that he does. You have to listen to the people who are on his side who are going, dude, that's far enough. And he hasn't gone nearly far enough yet. He hasn't even started to do what needs to be done. And if he's got a fault at this point, is that he's tread a little too lightly on certain issues. And so, we've got a big deal to deal with in getting rid of a lot of people from this country. It's just that simple. But you do that by taking away their money, their ability to make money off of it, and then you start rolling people up from the street level all the way to the top, while at the same time letting everybody know damn well we're going after Obama. Obama's the friggin' prize. We're going to destroy him because he needs to be destroyed. Obama needs to be destroyed as a symbol, as a metaphor. Just like Davos and company have been trying to destroy the old kings of Europe, are trying to destroy the concept of an actual people-run government where the people are sovereign over the government. Metaphor, which is what the United States is. Why they hate us so much. They hate us more than they hate the Russians, by the way. Never forget that. They created Canada to ensure that we always had a hostile neighbor on our northern border.
The Obama being the symbol, I think it's such a great point, because I feel like the most Americans are just, they're so jaded, and there's just the two-tier justice system. And I'm sure most people feel like, what's going to happen? Like, nothing's going to happen with these people. I mean, what are your thoughts there?
No, I mean, I agree. I'm with all of them. Like, at the end of the day, like, I don't know that anybody's going to go, quote unquote. I think Brennan and Clapper are probably going to go to jail. I want to see, I think some people are going to go to jail. I think a lot of low level people are going to go to jail, or they're going to flip and turn states, and we're going to clean up. The important thing here, and the most important thing, and this is not me going like, trying to run cover for anyone, and all the friggin', Juicebergs out there will literally say this is, oh, look, Tommy's going to pivot now. No, fuck off, dudes. This is rationality. The reality is that if you can get reform of the institutions, and you can fire the people who were the information silos and the gatekeepers and the ones that like made the system, made the deep state run. If you get that, that's a bigger win than you ever expected in your entire life. So shut up and take the win, and understand that in any negotiated settlement, there's going to be a lot of unhappy people on both sides.
What do you see going forward when it comes to, metals, gold and silver, this, the commodities, Bitcoin, like, sound money, things like that? Like, why do we fix this system and fix the incentives? Like, I would love for you to start unpacking how you see the world. But we have, Jerome Powell is fighting with Trump. We've got, Fed head, Mirren, coming in all of a sudden. We've got all kinds of movement going on. What are your thoughts here?
I don't have 2 hours, but in the short term, because I don't want to do a 3-hour podcast. In the short answer to this is, from my perspective, is that Jerome Powell is being cast as the villain in Trump's little psychodrama on how to reform the Fed. And so Powell has to be the guy who isn't, who didn't help Trump get elected in 2024, which is a lie. And Trump knows it's a lie, but Trump doesn't give a shit. Because if Powell wanted Trump reelected, he would have started cutting interest rates in March. Because all of a sudden because Donald Trump declared that this was the case, all of a sudden everybody forgot that it takes 6 to 9 months for monetary policy to transmit through the economy. That thing they only told us for the last 35 or 40 years. Oh, no, sorry, that's not, Trump said it was this. Like, yeah, okay, whatever, dude. Like, seriously? And the worst part about it is I watch financial professionals because they hate Trump, or because they want to prove me wrong about his relationship, about Powell, that I see them like throw this shit at me. I'm like, and just out in the zeitgeist, I'm like, okay. I know you need a cookie. Go get a cup of tea, sit down, have a glass of warm milk. It's okay. Orange man bad. And, and I'm a douchebag. I know, I get it. So, no, I mean, seriously, like, Brandon, like, it's just so ungodly stupid. Clearly, Powell held off cutting interest rates for as long as possible to make sure that the Biden economy was as bad as possible. While the Biden administration, I misspoke. The Biden junta was lying about all the labor data. Why? So that they can make the economy look better than it was. What did that do? It gave Jerome Powell all the excuses imaginable not to cut interest rates until things really got really bad. Then he cut interest rates right before the election, where it would have no effect on the election whatsoever, but it would actually help Wall Street and the banks, so that there would then, at that point, it would actually ensure that there wouldn't be any kind of credit crisis between the Fed's final meeting and the election. Actually cutting interest rates, if you really think about it, ensured that there was enough liquidity to paper over any issues so that Trump could sail to victory, which is exactly what happened. And then he cut 2 more times after that, ended the year 4.5%, and said, you know what, now we're going to watch to see what Trump does. But everything Trump's doing is creating uncertainty for capital markets. Powell's still got to keep the investing class from losing their minds. So what does he do? He says, yeah, tariffs are probably going to cause inflation. The labor market's still pretty good. Then the Bureau of Labor Statistics, in order to make Trump look bad, starts heavily revising the BLS labor reports until to make which then tries to make Trump look bad because the economy's faltering 3 months into the tariff regime, and they released that, of course, after the last FOMC meeting where Powell didn't cut rates. I mean, this is the way the game is played in Washington. You have to, everything really is a game of house of cards, dude. Like, it is all that. They think in these terms. This isn't 4D chess. This is what these people are. I mean, this is what these consultants are hired to do. Like, they're everywhere. They're like, shit. in DC. Like, that's what they are. They're all over the place. And once you understand, like, I'm not telling anybody you don't already know. Everybody watched House of Cards or some other stupid political drama. Or they, in my case, I've watched Absolute Power with Clint Eastwood movie, Absolute Power with Gene Hackman. Great little movie, right? Like, but you learn it all. We've learned these lessons over the years. We're not stupid. Like, so all of a sudden, invoking all of that is like somehow all of a sudden that's 5D chess. Like, okay, whatever, dude. I'm sorry you were born under a bad sign. I don't know. I'm sorry your worldview is so fucking small. No, that's the way the world works. So now Powell has all the reason in the world to cut rates after Jackson Hole. So with his last 2 or 3 Fed meetings, probably going to do the exact same thing he did last year. He'll cut by 50 in September, 25, and then 25. But what Trump is really doing is setting up for a reform of the Federal Reserve, a massive reform of the Federal Reserve. He's going to take he's going to take a lot of power out of the hands of the Fed. And the Fed has too much power. The Fed has too much power. I'm not saying that, we'd all like the Fed to go away, and maybe that will happen in the future. But that's not this phase of the operation. This phase of the operation is to start doing an end run around the Fed having full control over the transmission system of new dollars. That's what stablecoins are about. And, a lot of people have commented on this, but they haven't actually even read a simple executive summary of the stablecoin bill to understand what the big deal in it is. What's the big deal? The big deal is that local banks can issue their own US dollar stable coins against their reserve assets, meaning they're going to be lending their own token. Well, they're going to be lending against their tokens that they are able to issue relative to their local supply and demand for dollars. In effect, they're going to be setting their own interest rates locally. It's the return. It's the beginning of the return to free and local banking.
Free banking. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's so friggin' obvious what's coming. That's what's coming. And, everybody who's thinking geopolitically and the BRICS and the this, and you're thinking all wrong. You've got to rebuild Main Street. The only way you rebuild Main Street, as Caitlin Long said to me the other day on the podcast, 70% of the credit that's created in the United States is created by small and medium regional banks. The small business loans is what creates credit, is what creates the credit within the system to build the economy. You have to figure out a way to give them the ability to compete with the large banks for that business. I've said this many, many, many times. As much as JP Morgan wants to quote unquote rule the world, I got news for you. They don't want to build a tire shop in Palatka. They don't want to fund that. They don't want to have some guy at a local branch do the risk analysis. That's what a local bank's for. They know the people in there. They're supposed to know the business. Yeah. They're supposed to be involved with the local chamber of commerce and know the city commissioners and know the zoning guys and know the building inspectors and who the good contractors are, who the good contractors are and everything else. JP Morgan doesn't know any of that. They don't know anything about that. The bigger problem is that our small and regional banks have been so for so long that not a damn one of them can do loan origination. Between all of the Dodd-Frank rules and everything else and the underwriting rules, it's all a friggin' nightmare to get anything done where anybody can actually get anything done. And the talent's all left. And that we don't have good loan origination. We don't have good underwriters who can literally do a P&L statement for a self-employed person like myself and go, yeah, he makes a lot of money and he has very few expenses. Give him a loan. Mm-hmm. No, they can't do that because they all have these really dumb mad libs that they got to fill in for compliance purposes. And then the numbers come up wrong and they go, but you don't make enough money. I'm like, but you're discounting 90% of my revenue because I'm not an idiot. So you're punishing me for running a tax minimization strategy for my, so I can't get a tax loan. Are you at it? What the hell's wrong with you? But that's the world we live in. And who created that damn Kafka's nightmare? Mm-hmm. Who wrote all those rules? The rules-based order over in Europe. Mm-hmm. They wrote all that shit into our system. The big banks went along with it when there was no other option, because they were barred from doing net interest margin banking that was profitable. So then they had to be turned into friggin' hedge funds and currency speculators. All that has to be unwound. All of it, every bit of it. All the regulations need to be rewritten. All the everything, and the stablecoin acts and the crypto acts and the stablecoin regulations and the rewriting of the bank regulation model so that it's not, these banks are not regulated by the Fed, and we can get rid of the Fed, which is a political institution, whether we like it or not, and be done with it. And put the Fed back into its original box, lender of last resort in the commercial paper market, not the U.S. Treasury market, and an enforcer of the par value of the dollar for foreign central banks. It should be an Exim bank, in dollars, for lack of a better term, and nothing more. And if we do that, the United States will not only survive this period of time, as long as it doesn't get into a war with Russia, it will thrive in a way that nobody ever thought. My biggest problem, the biggest conceptual thing that's changed with me over the last few years has been to really think about the U.S. as like a thing. You've got liabilities, but everyone wants to focus on the liabilities. Well, debt GDP and unfunded liabilities of Social Security and Medicare, and the boomers are all aging out. And they're all dying of the anyway. Like, yeah, I hate to be blunt, but that number is, Davos needed to put those people off. We're going to benefit from that. Everyone's going to benefit from that. So, they were hoping the demographic collapse would be strong enough that they could then invade the world with a bunch of others and destroy the culture, so that they can destroy everything. Because what they want is they want a new neo-feudal world where AI runs everything, and we don't matter. They want Minority Report with more Germans. It's everything I've been saying for the last 5 years. They literally want Minority Report, but with more Germans, just to run the technocracy. Because Germans are good at that. So
yeah, yeah, isn't involved.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud?
We've been telegraphing.
Yeah, I kind of did. So I know I keep using my outside voice when I'm not supposed to. But when you really think of it that way, you're like, oh, okay, so that's what they wanted. We're not going to get that. We're going to get something far better than that. But if we're vigilant, okay. The tools that are being created today and the system that's being created today, we have to choose wisely where we put our money, where we invest our money, what politicians we back, and everything else. We have to do this. All Trump can do and company, all they can do is tear the old system down and build the foundations for a new system, and then allow that new system, and then that new system is going to run. And it's whatever. And look, don't get me wrong. It's not like the people around Trump and that are being backed by, that are backing Trump and Trump is, partnering with them in whatever way. It's not like they don't have an agenda. Like, they're not trying to advantage the system to their benefit. Of course they are. That's going to be for us to figure out. But if we get closer to a free banking model, then the big banks can go back to building the big projects like nuclear power plants and pipelines and new ship builds and all that stuff. That's what they're for. Yeah. And the small banks can get back to building water treatment plants and libraries and school gymnasiums and baseball fields. Wouldn't that be nice?
That would be a wonderful world. That's for sure. It feels
be a better
like
world than the one we have.
Oh, you're not kidding. Obviously, this is not going to be an overnight thing. I mean, it feels like it's going to be, you need a couple of Trump administrations, right? Like
this
is he setting the table for it in essence?
This is setting a table for a generational shift in how we organize capital.
Showing the way.
This is setting the shift for, and the only way this part of it that I laid out, the only way that works is if you also solve the geopolitical stuff at the same time, right? You have to end all of the dumb conflicts that are leftovers from the fallback of the British, the Anglo-Dutch, British and Dutch, all that European colonial system of the 17th, 18th, 19th centuries, morphed into a colonial system with central banks at the core in the 20th century. In the 21st century, they want to replace that with AI and stablecoins. And, AI, not stablecoins, but AI and central bank digital currencies and all the rest of it. And the old geopolitical hotspots, the India, anti-India, America, anti-America, Canada, India, Pakistan, America, Canada, North and South Korea, Israel, Iran, Russia, Ukraine, right? Armenia, Azerbaijan, blah, 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 blah. Every one of these, India, China, right? Thailand, not Malaysia, Burma, right? Like all these, like China, Vietnam, like over the Spratlys and all this shit, right? When you look at all these things, or most appropriately, Taiwan, China, right? These were all set up to be flashpoints that could be spun up at a moment's notice in order to create conflict, to focus everybody's attention, and then to turn everybody into geopolitical experts of the week because they stayed at a Holiday Inn Express, and then burp out a bunch of bullshit on social media, and then manufacture consent in support of or against. It's how they did it to us in Iraq 1. It's how they did it in Iraq 2, after 9/11, Afghanistan, blah, 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 Vietnam, all of it, right? It's a weak system. And Trump is destroying every one of these bit by bit by bit. I think that he handled Israel, Iran as well as you possibly could. It's not over because both sides don't want it to be over. Why did both sides not want it to be over? My opinion, because both sides are working for the British who don't want it to be over. That's my conspiratard version of the story. While they at the same time turn the Israelis into the world's scapegoat for all the evils in the world, so that everybody can go, oh, get this one. It's really not. Like, that's the oldest rule that's the oldest game in the book, right? What's the greatest trick the devil ever pulled, right? Making you believe that he doesn't exist, right? Yeah. Typical narcissistic, narcissistic triangulation. Lets you and he fight. I'm going to sell weapons to both sides of the conflict, and then I'm going to piss off one versus the other. Mm-hmm. Triangulation 101. Brits are really good at it. Been doing it for years. They got a PhD in that shit. They teach like whole classes at private. Right. No, public colleges, and because the public colleges and universities in England are private colleges and vice versa. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. So that game is ending. And that's what the Trump-Putin meeting is all about. That's why there was a 12-day war in Israel or in Iran. That's why, he went to North Korea. That's why he's putting massive pressure on Canada. He understands exactly what Canada is. That's why he cut a pipeline deal with Daniel Smith the other day. They're both prepping the stage, man, for Western Canada to join the United States. I think it would be the most brilliant thing that's possible for everything from Saskatchewan out to Vancouver, and wall that shit thing off and turn it into a John Carpenter movie. Be done with it until the Chinese leave. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I mean, the resources there, everything are just incredible. It would be.
I have friends in Vancouver who would be like, "You're right." I hate to admit it, but you're right.
Oh man!
Every time I call it Vancouver, they just laugh. They're like, "Yeah, you're right." Like, it's true. Like, but I mean, the rest of British Columbia would leave Canada in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Not that there's anybody else there. Like, it's all 50 of them. But
right.
I kid. But the point being is that, that whole area of Canada would be so well served to be under U.S. law and U.S. protection. I can't, I'm serious when I say, I'm like, this is the best thing for you. When I was up in Alberta earlier in the year, I was up in Calgary and was discussing, mechanisms for secession and whatnot. And Albertan independence, it was, kind of a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Kudos to Sean Newman for putting everything together. I kept telling them over and over again, I said, your best path to independence from Ottawa is to petition to become a territory of the United States, not a state.
Yeah.
Not a state. You don't want to be a state. You don't even want to be an independent country because you can't defend yourself. You become a territory of the United States, you get our laws, you get our corporate structure, you get our legal structure, you get this, you get that, and you get our military to come and defend your borders. But you have none of the political baggage of becoming a state, where everybody's trying to schmooze you to become a Democratic state or Republican state, and they're going to gerrymander you, and they're going to do this, and that, blah, 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 blah. None of that shit. Like, just be a territory for a few years, 10, 15 years. Get your shit in order. Govern yourselves. Basically, as a territory, you still get to self-govern. Just got to, and you don't have to, you get all the advantages, and you even get tax advantages too, being a territory. Like, it would be the greatest thing for Canada, for Alberta and company to do. This is become a territory for a while. And then eventually, when all the bullshit's over and we've invaded Ottawa. I kid. Like, you can clearly see what they're setting up in that part of the world. I can see it as clear as day that they're looking to break the left coast off as a separate country, and they're going to try and landlock the United States for all intents and purposes. By taking the Northeast, merging it with Eastern Canada, turning that into a new country, do the same thing to the left coast, and then leave the rest of the North America kind of landlocked. Because all the good ports are up north. All the good infrastructure's up north. Baltimore, New York, blah, 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 blah. The southern ports aren't as robust. And so that's why they installed Mark Carney in Canada. That's why they're trying to install that in New York. Like, it's what they're setting up. They're playing that. They're going to try and play that game. It's not going to work. But that, you can see it clear as day. They're running the script. Gavin Newsom's out there running the script today on redistricting. It's the same thing. But you can see it coming.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, you're cute. We roll 3 tanks in Ottawa and say, you know what? That's cute. No. No.
What role does hard money play in all this? Bitcoin, gold, and silver. We talked about stable coins and just
the collateral. Yeah, I mean,
okay.
I never got around to your original question, but it's the collateral.
Well, we started the free banking, right? The stable coins and free banking in that world.
Yeah, well, stable coins, yeah. So stable coins, everybody's talking about how that's going to be great for the T-bill market, and it's true, it will be. But Tether owns some gold, they own some Bitcoin, they own some, long dated commercial paper, they own a whole bunch of stuff. They own mostly T-bills because they stay liquid in a volatile market, but they've got a balance sheet they got a portfolio of assets making about 4% a year. They're overcapitalized. Great. Into a rising market cap. Great. So yeah, I mean, what I would say is, it's important that the collateral is there. We're moving back to a system where you're going to have deposits far less leveraged in the local lending markets than they had in the past. We've all been used to, because you're going to have these stable coins are going to have minimum 1-to-1 reserve requirements against reserves. And, the definition of reserves, of course, are going to be, okay, so what is the, how do you value the loan portfolio of the bank that's issuing the stable coins? I don't know. I don't know what those rules are going to look like. But I know that, banks that used to get 6 times over leveraged usually got bank run. And in an era where bank run's going to occur in an hour, 24 hours, you can lose everything. You lose all your deposits can move to somebody else in an hour or 2 hours or 4 hours. You've got to really have the trust of your customers. So the best way to have trust, gain your customers' trust, keep a low leverage on your balance sheet. Pay them good money. Be a profitable bank. Do 363 banking. Lend at 3, or borrow at 3, lend at 6 on the golf course by 3. Right? And that's what we want. Right? And that's what the world wants. It's what built America. It's what'll it's what'll rebuild the world or build the new world. And when you have things like, when you have the dollar moving into, areas of the world through Tether and soon to be other stable coins, people making less than $1 a day being able to deposit their wages in a little kiosk onto the blockchain, not even needing a bank. Like, say, you got to realize that Tether is internationalizing the dollar, is finding new markets for the dollar that the traditional banking model could never do in the past. It's not profitable enough. And so the world is rapidly changing. And so gold and silver, and gold and Bitcoin, and let's just keep it a gold and Bitcoin for now, and treasuries. Mm-hmm. They form a really hard collateral system. Everything else is kind of secondary, may flow in and out of reserve status for, on a localized basis, depending on the situation. But, reality is that they're going to form the collateral for this new system. And everybody's going to need to have some in order to be able to, especially at the central bank level. The central banks want to survive. They all have to buy shit tons of gold in order to have enough gold backing their currencies, their crappy stable coins that they're issuing. Because remember, like 90% of dollars are digital. Like stable coins already exist. They're called dollars. Like, right? They're just not held on public blockchains. They're not wrapping other assets, but they kind of are, right? So all we're doing is, in effect, tokenizing on a blockchain everything that's already been done. That's the system that's already exists, moving it along different networks. But for those central banks to be able to settle up their trade balances at the end of a month or a quarter or whatever, they're going to have to be able to, point to a whole bunch of gold in the vault that's owned by you or me or some other country, and and then move and metaphorically move them all around, and then trust builds in the system that you're not going to seize each other's shit like we had post Bretton Woods. And now what do we have? We're the return of piracy. That's what seizing people's foreign exchange reserves looks like. That's called piracy. And why do you think for 2.5 years the friggin' European Union was trying desperately to get Janet Yellen to seize the Russians' foreign exchange reserves? Because they wanted her to go first. And then they weren't going to do it. That's how that shit works. Hey, man, you go first.
Yeah.
Nah.
That's wild.
Snap. Very dangerous. You go first, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's hey, you go to that. Hey, you drink. It's a game of you drink, in college. And they're like, you know what? No, I'm not drinking. You go first. It's my turn because you drink. No, you drink. No, you drink.
Yeah, it's a great point. So you just alluded to that trust factor. I mean, I know a lot of Bitcoiners would say, well, all stable coins and all this, the trust you have to have with gold and all these things, Bitcoin fixes that trust element. We don't have to trust nations. We don't have to trust auditing and verifying if we just use Bitcoins.
Yeah, that's great.
Love for your thought on
that. But Bitcoin's not big enough to handle those flows. It's just not.
right
it's
now
just
for sure.
not. I mean, it may be.
Right.
Let it win, but it's got to win. It's got to win.
Yes.
It hasn't proven anything yet, but it's proven that it has. What Bitcoin has proven is that it gets a seat at the table.
Mm-hmm.
It gets a seat at the table because it solves other people's problems. So far, Bitcoiner's been right. I'm rooting for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I'm rooting. Yeah. I'm just not saying it's going to happen.
Right.
That's all. Nothing more. And if that, and if that's an anti-Bitcoin statement, or if that makes me a shitcoiner, oh well, I'm a racist too, by the way. You know what I mean? Like, whatever. Like,
no, honestly, no, Tom.
Old man I'm not, I'm not old man screams at Bitcoin, but if that's what you want, that's the role you want to cast me in, go right ahead and do so. I just don't give a fuck.
It's great because I feel like this is the argument of our time to a large extent, which is everyone's lost nuance in the world. Like I went back from the Nashville conference last year one of my buddies, Luke Broyles, we drove all the way back to Michigan, 9 hours. And the entire time the word we kept coming back to is nuance, where a lot of Bitcoiners tend to be a certain personality profile. They tend to be, we're going to push forward, like bringing your vision into the future or entrepreneurial mindsets, like things like that, where we tend to live in idealism, where we need a little more pragmatism at times. I've talked about with numerous guests where it's like, yeah, that's great. That might be like 50 years from now or 10 years from now or 5 or 100. We don't know. But right now we're dealing with this. And I think that's where you have to have that realism and that pragmatism.
Yeah. The realism is that the existing network of people who have a lot of friggin' first mover advantage over you could build a system that
and a lot
precludes
of wealth.
that could work well enough and preclude Bitcoin from winning. Mm-hmm. Okay, Spurg boy, keep thinking that math wins. Keep thinking that
you got to take
and then someone's going to walk into your room and they're going to come. They're going to walk up to you and they're going to grab you by the shoulder and they're going to punch you in the mouth and say, "Give me your treasure. What are your 24 words?" No, Bitcoin wins. Give me your 24 words or I kill your dog.
Yeah,
give me your 24 words or I kill your kid. Like, dude, you have to realize that that's the world we live in. It has always been that way. This is the failure of I'm serious. Like, it's a failure of that kind of thinking. I'm not saying that your heart's in the wrong place at all. Not at all.
Right. No.
I want it to work, but you have to prove to me that you can build systems that are going to be able to compete that way. And I don't see it yet. I don't see it. I talked to Marty Bent recently, and he doesn't think that, he doesn't see it yet. Caitlin Long wants to believe that it's happening. I don't. I'm like, okay. I don't know. Everybody's got a different opinion on this. We'll find out who's right. I'm agnostic. People ask me like, well, what do you own? I own a lot of gold. I own some Bitcoin. I own some Ripple. I own some cash. I got it all. And I own a couple of stocks, not a lot. And I wouldn't own any of it. Honestly, I mean, and for, for,
I agree.
I mean, for disclosure purposes, whatever I have in my, in my retirement accounts, I'll be honest with you, it's all freaking gold and Bitcoin anyway. Like it's all I got. I mean, I'm just, I'm just like, it's just gold and Bitcoin and silver in a tax advantaged account. That's it. It's the only difference. It's the same thing. But ask me, do I have a life insurance policy denominated in dollars? Yeah, I do. Is it
right?
Is it a great return on my investment? No, it's not. Am I invested in a depreciating shitcoin? Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. The next 5 years are going to determine whether or not the purchasing power of the dollar for the first time in a long time starts to rise as opposed to fall. And when you are in that environment, what do you think the price of Bitcoin is going to do? Is it going to rise?
You would think
only if it's the thing causing the dollar to rise in value by being the collateral underneath the dollar. Mm-hmm. So what do I think for gold and silver? I think silver is a different story completely. Gold. Let's run some math. Let's assume that the Federal Reserve, the one act that's going through the Congress right now has the provision in it that the Treasury is going to remit and then emit and re-emit IOUs or receipts, to the Federal Reserve for the gold. They're going to revalue it and they're going to put it back on the gold and the Fed's balance sheet. Here's the fun part. Everybody's been like, there ain't no gold in Fort Knox, dude. It's not there. They sold it all off. They gave it all. No, they didn't. It's all there. Moreover, what happens if we've all talked for years like that China has more gold than they actually can lay claim to more gold than on their balance sheet. They've all said the same thing about the Russians. Russians probably have 5,000 tons more gold than the Bank of Russia has officially in its reserve. Maybe it has 10. I don't know. It's some number. Chinese probably have a lot more. Why do we believe the United States doesn't again? What if we were to find out that not only does the United States have its 8,133.5 tons of gold that's on the Fed's balance sheet, currently held at $42.22 an ounce, for a whopping accounting value on the Fed's balance sheet of $11.04 billion, as opposed to the $900 billion or so that it is in actual marketable terms today. What if the United States actually has something like 11,000 tons of gold? It issues the receipts, but in order to consolidate the federal balance sheet, you got to call in the gold from the Fed, revalue it, and then send it back to the Fed. Now, all of a sudden, the Fed's $6.2 trillion balance sheet has $900 billion worth of gold reserves in it. Now the Fed is only 7-to-1 leveraged, not 60-to-1 in accounting terms. 7. That's at $3,400 an ounce. And the Treasury admits that it's got a couple of thousand tons of gold. So it's got a few $100 billion in gold. Oh, that changes the calculus about what's. Now let's move the price of gold to $5,000. At $5,000, the gold on the Fed's balance sheet is worth 20% of the Fed's balance sheet at current size of the balance sheet, or or a 5-to-1 leverage ratio. Now let's talk about a 5-to-1 leverage ratio, shall we? That seems reasonable. Maybe it needs to go down to 2. Well, okay, fine. Then gold's $12,000 an ounce. Now we're at a 2-to-1 ratio, and we've added more money to the balance, and we back more Treasury. If the Treasury has a couple extra thousand tons of gold just laying around, just saying. The way you get out of this, it's all accounting. You grow the asset side of the balance sheet. You can grow gold in terms of price, Bitcoin even as well. You grow them into a market that allows you to then expand the volume of dollars running around. But you back the same number of dollars with a higher percentage of gold and or Bitcoin. And obviously US T-bills at the same time. But the free banking model is actually incentivizing Americans and American banks to hold Treasury bill as opposed to everybody else. Far more than it currently does. So now we're setting up a domestic dollar that trades at a different price internally behind the tariff wall than externally. Still a dollar, except foreigners get to buy those dollars for $1.05. And Americans get to buy those dollars at 95 cents. You see what I'm getting at? We've been doing it the other way.
Right.
Foreigners have been buying them for 95 cents, and we're paying $1.05 to get access to dollars. Because we have to borrow them from the Fed. So, not completely, but basically. Let's reverse that dynamic. Now let's talk. And then let's start building, and then let's turn around and keep the wealth internally inside the country, and those banks will then have the option of converting some of those profits into gold, put on their personal balance sheets, outside of the reserve assets that they currently have. Now, shareholders in the bank, again, it's all a virtuous cycle of wealth generation for Main Street. Okay? Like, you have to think in those terms. And then you also have to stop thinking about only the liability side of the balance sheet. You got to start thinking about the asset side of the balance sheet. As I said earlier, if you think that Alaska is not worth more than most countries, you are out of your fucking mind, especially at $7,000 an ounce gold or $10,000 an ounce gold or $120 an ounce silver. All of a sudden, Alaska, which I don't know, maybe is worth $15 trillion today, all of a sudden it's worth 30 to everyone else. All of a sudden, the numbers change. You can actually set up a system where, as you know, we've always liked about Bitcoin, a system where the purchasing power of the dollar goes up, but not necessarily change the exchange rate of the dollar overseas. The purchasing power of the dollar can go up internally and not go, and not then create a desire to go put it somewhere else by having singular exchange rates. It's a different world. It's a different model. I don't have a full handle on it yet, but I know that model exists. And I know that that's the model that everybody's putting together. So should leave it there to think about, not to dictate about.
What are your thoughts on government? So, because you just mentioned gold, stuff in the balance sheets with gold, et cetera. It just got me thinking of governments and the corporations. Now we have the Bitcoin treasuries. Like, what are your thoughts on what's happening in that world? I would love to hear your thought on that for a minute.
Again, it's no different than anything else. Like right now, what people are doing is they're just grabbing for the asset that they expect is going to go up in value. And they're just figuring out where they're going to put their money, where they're going to get their everybody's just searching for yield, dude. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
So they're just looking for yield, and they think Bitcoin's going to go up faster than T-bills or whatever, and that's why they're putting their money there. Like Bitcoin is still an asset looking for its total addressable market, so it's going to be volatile. It means it's going to go up, and then it's going to go down. And I don't know, like nothing is linear in this thing. So the Bitcoin treasury thing, this isn't, it's like, so I don't, to be honest with you, I don't give a shit. I just don't care. Like whatever, like are companies putting gold on their balance sheets because they want to hold on to it? Because Bitcoin doesn't throw off yield. It's not an investment. It's savings. It's currency.
Right.
It's like gold. It's savings. It's not a currency.
Right.
I mean, it's not a yield bearing asset. It's not an investment.
Right.
And so,
this is money.
Michael Saylor is not investing in Bitcoin. Michael Saylor is making a bet. Michael Saylor is hoarding cash on his company's balance sheet in the form of Bitcoin, expecting it to be worth more dollars. That's it. He may be wrong about that bet in the end. He may be betting on $2 million Bitcoin. It may only get to $250,000. I think Bitcoin's got plenty of room to run, but these guys are talking like, oh, we're going to take over the entire freaking world, like with Bitcoin. They're like, no, I got news for you. There's something called XRP, and I really do think XRP is going to come in and steal a lot of that thunder, because XRP actually provides a service as liquidity for real markets. I love Bitcoin, but it has a particular role, and Level 2 on Lightning is not robust yet. I don't see it getting that much more robust that quickly either. I don't see it becoming, I just don't see it yet. And I don't think it has institutional buy-in. And the institutions, they still have these. And those guns are not necessarily the guns you think they are. They're called market share. And they can bully markets with them. Do I think it's going to be XRP as opposed to XLM versus Solana or this one or that one? I don't give a shit. I personally think Ethereum is just, I still think Ethereum is dog shit. I do. I may be wrong, but I've always thought Ethereum was dog shit. I thought it was dog shit when it was proof of work, and I really think it's dog shit when it's proof of stake. But I may be, again, some Ethereum guy may be like throwing his freaking shoe at his monitor right now. I don't care, or his iPhone, like whatever. Like, I may be wrong, but I still think it's dog shit. I still think it's globalist dog shit. Far more than I think Ripple is. But, we'll see what happens. Like, I didn't, Caitlin Long brought that up in my podcast the other day. I was like, I was not going to argue with her because, I don't really have a great argument about this. Maybe she's right.
Yeah,
maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I
none of us do.
What I see happening right now at the institutional level, I don't know about you, but I think you're dumb not to take a $3,000 bet on Ripple in the hopes of a 10 to 20x return. I mean, I think you're just dumb. Like, there are a lot of asymmetric trades out there that will blow people's minds. That will blow people's minds. Okay, and they're in. I'm not going to talk about them explicitly because half of them are in my portfolio. But I have asymmetric bets on certain assets, for my subscribers that are they're off the charts where they go. If you start thinking ahead as to what people are actually going to do, who have the political power to do what they're going to do, and what they've already told you they're going to do. Where do you think these numbers? I mean, that's what I see. Like, I could talk for an hour about some of this shit. I'm not going to.
I interviewed Matt Hogan like a month ago from Bitwise, and he said, he was like, you can't underestimate the power of existing relationships, right? The good old boys club and the wealth that's out there right now, right? And that's kind of what you're alluding to in essence, right?
I'm not alluding to it. I'm specifically telling you that the same reason that Bitcoiners say that Bitcoin beats all other shitcoin is why the existing systems can beat Bitcoin. The two words that every Bitcoiner loves more than anything else: network effects.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple. Yep, they have networks, dude. And their networks are bigger than Bitcoin.
Right. And to your point,
and they see the threat now. Now they're trying to figure out how they can use Bitcoin's network to their advantage. Why do you think you're going to win? Why do you think you're going to beat them?
It's the big test going forward, like you said. Yeah.
Or
100%.
Why do you think you're going to beat them in the next 3 years or 5 years or whatever? Why do you think that? Bitcoin may win in 30 years if it's still running. And if Bitcoin does win in that disruptive, crazy time frame, 3 years, 5 years, 3 years, for example, why do you think that some other proof of work blockchain that has better attributes than Bitcoin can't be broken down as well? If Bitcoin can overcome the traditional systems attempts at holding on to power, why do you think there's not another competitor out there that the market isn't willing to choose later on? Never, ever, ever, ever think that you have the end of technology. Don't ever think that the game ends or the story ends, because the story never ends. It's a constant fight. Okay, that's the way the world works. So
it's funny. It's funny you say that, Tom. Yeah, I know it's funny you say it, because I think that's why every Bitcoiner that is an ardent, Bitcoiner today came there because of that humility of understanding, hey, there might be something different. And I think that's where
I don't know about that. I've met an awful lot of I've met and argued with an awful lot of arrogant Bitcoiners over the years. I have.
Yeah, and I think I think it's righteous indignation.
I've been in this shit since 2010. Yeah. I've argued every angle on this. I've argued every angle that proof of work is an ultimate centralizing tool. I've heard it all. I mean, listen to it. Go, all those theories sound nice because you live in your head. Wait until somebody decides to not fight fair. Well, you can't fight fair against math. Okay, keep telling yourself that, Spurg boy.
Well, and logic. Yeah, and to your point earlier, I mean, if logic ruled the day, then we never would have left the gold standard. We wouldn't have fiat. And if that was the case, also Bitcoin would have been here in 2010, 2011. We would have taken over everything.
If logic ruled the day, we wouldn't have civilization.
Right.
Because this is a very important point. I want to end the podcast on this. I don't care. Yeah. You save the question for next time. It's very important. Logic doesn't build civilizations. Emotion and endocrine systems build civilizations. Blood builds civilizations. Sweat builds civilizations. Need builds civilizations. Nothing more. We are not machines that poop. We are emotional creatures, barely understand ourselves, no less, and our own reactions to things, no less to everybody else's. You may be able to prove, I have the perfect money. That's nice. And you'll be capable of building a fourth-rate book club with third-rate historians. And you'll get 1% of the vote. Welcome to being a libertarian. Or you can understand that at the end of the day, all that matters is blood. Now, we use these systems of trade to minimize the application of blood. Too many, I keep saying it, too many spurgs, not enough jocks. You got to get jocks into Bitcoin who understand how to fight, who understand how you're a hockey player, right?
Yep.
Hockey's not won with systems. Why is hockey the greatest sport in the world? Because it's 12 guys on a rink with sticks, with clubs in their hands and knives on their feet, trying to put us frozen, fighting over a 4-inch disc of vulcanized rubber to put it in behind that standing wearing inflated pads in front of the goal. How do you do that? You sacrifice your freaking body is how you do it. You want it more than the other guy.
Pay the price. Yep.
Period. That's
So
why the Stanley Cup playoffs should be required watching for everybody the world over every year. We should all just stop working. Summer vacation should be watch the Stanley Cup playoffs to remind each other just what it means to win a war of attrition for what you want. Period. Like, that's all we should do for 2 months and all we should talk about, because it is the greatest tournament of human striving that exists. The World Cup doesn't come close. The football, only the NHL, only hockey, only those guys on that ice doing that thing for anywhere from 21 to 25 games. Because any team that wins the Stanley Cup by having to play 28 games, well, I wouldn't want to be their coach next year. I wouldn't want to be their coach next year, because they're not going to be competitive next year because they played an entire third extra season. Poor guys. Obviously. But that's another thing. I'm dead serious when I say this. This is important because that's your model.
It is. Yeah.
That's your model for the world you live in today. It's not the best team that wins. It's the team that wants it more than the other guy. I've watched plenty of talented teams lose. I've watched plenty of untalented teams cheat and win. Cheat the victory. I'm still bitter about 1999. Being a Buffalo Sabres fan. Can't let it go.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't let it go. Going to my grave with it.
Stars,
I think I'm going to make sure that I put it on have my wife put it on my gravestone. No goal. Like, I'm dead serious.
Oh, man. I mean, Hall was in the crease. He was running over Dominic.
Yeah, he was in the fucking crease.
That's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, there's always thing in hockey, right? You can't just throw your sticks on the ice. You can't expect to win, right? You got to go out and play the game, and whoever wants it more is going to win that game.
So whoever wants
it. I think that's it.
Yeah. So. No, that's and if the Bitcoiners want to win, they better get with the winning. They better get with that, and not just this is going to be easy. We're winning.
Right. We have logic. We have math. Right. Exactly.
Ain't no math. Ain't no math.
Right. And to your point too, Saylor, I mean, one of Saylor's biggest threats, he's said very publicly in the last few years, is people not caring about sound money, just thinking like, again, we could throw our sticks in the ice and like, hey, we've got truth. We've got sound logic. We've got to, I mean, look, you had Christ come down and they nailed him to a cross, right? I am the truth and I'm the way. Look, he's on the cross, so it's like humans aren't exactly here for truth or logic.
Exactly. We are the species that crucified the perfect man.
Yeah. You can't make this stuff up, Tom. You really can't. You can't.
And with that,
what better,
you know,
better
keep
way
your stick
to,
on the
to
ice.
wrap
Like,
it all
I
up?
think we're good.
Yeah, with keep your stick on the ice. Incredible stuff, Tom. I appreciate you joining me once again, Mr. Tom Luongo. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Brandon. Have a great night.
If you like that episode, then you're going to love the playlist we put together for you with our most recent podcast with the top Bitcoiners, sound money, liberty advocates in the world. Go check those out here. We'll see you inside. You're going to love them.